right, y'all. So we're going to start today and dig into the story of Tamar. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Tamar's story, but I can honestly say I was not. And so, reading this in Matthew, and I knew that I didn't know that much about Tamar. So I was like, well, let's just read the account of Tamar. And let's just read this together. So that's probably all we'll get to today, is just digging into this woman's story. Now, things to remember: this is the first woman that is mentioned in the genealogy of Jesus. All right, and her account is in Genesis chapter 38. It says, "At that time, Judah withdrew from his brothers and went to lodge with a certain Adullamite named Hira. There Judah saw and met a daughter of Shua, and a Canaanite. He took her as his wife and lived with her. And she became pregnant and bore a son, and he called him Er. E-R. And she conceived again and bore a son, named him Onan. Again she conceived and bore a son, and named him Shelah. They were living at Shezib when she bore him. Now Judah took a wife for his firstborn. Her name was Tamar." So Tamar was Judah's firstborn son's wife. "And Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. Then Judah told Onan, 'Marry your brother's widow, live with her, and raise offspring for your brother.' But Onan knew that the family would not be his, so when he cohabitated with his brother's widow, he prevented conception, lest he should raise up a child for his brother." Of course, in this time, the tradition was, the law, the way it was when the younger brother took the older brother's wife, it would be the older brother's family. It would not be his family. It would have still been carrying on his older brother's name and family. So he prevented conception lest he should raise a child for his brother. And this thing which he did displeased the Lord, and so he slew him also. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, "Remain a widow at your father's house till Shelah, my youngest son, is grown." For Judah thought, lest perhaps if Shelah should marry her, he would die also, and his brothers did. So Tamar went and lived in her father's house. So Judah sent her away because he didn't want her to marry Shelah, so that he wouldn't die like his older brothers did. This story, y'all, I'm telling you. All right, but later Judah's wife, the daughter of Shua, died, and when Judah was comforted, he went up to his sheep shearers at Tinmouth with his friend Hirah, the Adullamite. Then it was told to Tamar, "Listen, your father-in-law is going up to Tinmouth to shear his sheep." So she put off her widow's garments and covered herself with a veil, wrapped herself up in disguise, and sat in the entrance of Enam, which is by the road to Tinmouth. For she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given to him as his wife. So she saw the deception of Judah in not giving Shelah, his youngest son, to Tamar as a husband. So when Judah saw her, he thought she was a harlot or devoted prostitute under a vow to her goddess, for she had covered her face as such women did. He turned to her by the road and said, "Come, let me have intercourse with you." For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, "What will you give me that you may have intercourse with me?" He answered, "I will send you a kid from the flock." And she said, "Will you give me a pledge or a deposit until you send it?" And he said, "What pledge shall I give you?" She said, "Your signet seal, your signet cord, and your staff that is in your hand." And he gave them to her and came into her, and she became pregnant by him. And she arose and went away and laid aside her veil and put on the garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent the kid by the hand of his friend the Adullamite to receive his pledge from the widow's hand, but he was unable to find her. He asked the men of that place, "Where is the harlot or the prostitute who is openly by the roadside?" They said, "There was no harlot or temple prostitute here." So he returned to Judah and said, "I cannot find her." And also the local men said there was no harlot or temple prostitute. Judah said, "Let her keep the pledge articles for herself, lest we be made ashamed. I sent this kid, but have not found her." But about 3 months later, Judah was told, "Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has played the harlot, and also she is with child by her lewdness." And Judah said, "Bring her forth, and let her be burned." When she was brought forth, she took the things he had given her and pledged and sent them to her father-in-law, saying, "I am with child by the man to whom these articles belong." Then she said, "Make out clearly, I pray you, to whom these belong, the signet seal, the signet cord, and the staff." And Judah acknowledged them and said, "She has been more righteous and just than I, because I did not give her to my son." And he did not cohabitate with her again. Now when the time came for her to be delivered, behold, there were twins in her womb. And when she was in labor, one baby put out his hand, and the midwife took his hand and bound upon it a scarlet thread, saying, "This baby was born first." But he drew back his hand, and behold, his brother was born first. And she said, "What a breaking forth you have made for yourself." Therefore his name was called Perez, breaking forth. And afterward his brother, who had the scarlet thread upon his hand, was born and named Zerah. Now, that is chapter 38 of Genesis. You know, your head might be spinning a little bit with all that was in that account and history of Judah. That Jesus came from the line and tribe of Judah. And we're going to dig into this a little bit more tomorrow. I'll see you then. Bye, y'all.